Hi, I recently finished One Piece's East Blue Saga, so I thought I'd do a sort of arc review for you guys. We're talking a quick synopsis, a top 5 moments, and then a ranking of the Straw Hat crew. But first I want to start this video off by saying, oh my god, One Piece is absolutely phenomenal. I've made another video which you can check out in the top right corner about exactly why I loved the start of this series, but to very quickly summarize, I think it's just the start of such an amazing adventure and I cannot wait to continue reading it. That's in the future. Let's talk about the East Blue Saga. Starting with the Romance Dawn arc. This first arc of One Piece introduced us to our main character Luffy, and we get to see him as a younger child and where kind of his dream of becoming the Pirate King came from, and also how he got his powers by eating the Gum Gum fruit. During this kind of prequel sequence, we're also introduced to Shanks, which I'm assuming is going to become an extremely important character, but at this point in time, he's Luffy's hero, both metaphorically and also literally. Luffy endangers himself in the sea and Shanks saves him, losing an arm in the process, and we see Shanks pass down the famous Straw Hat. And this really is the start of One Piece's adventure. While Shanks is seemingly going to become one of the most important and powerful pirates in this series, at this moment we see just how caring he is, how much he cares for Luffy, and also how much he kind of respects him. I'm predicting these two are going to have a lot of interaction in the series. We get a quick jump forward, and this is where Luffy finally sets out to sea. On his own, classically, he's kind of just blundering forward. He's going and seeing what happens. He has his dream, he knows where he's heading, but he doesn't know how he's going to get there. And in the process, he comes across a couple of other characters. This arc specifically, we get introduced to Zoro. Zoro is a swordsman trained in a specific style where he holds one sword in each hand and one in his mouth. It makes him a really formidable foe, which is why he's been doing bounty hunting in the meantime. However, he's been captured by the Navy and Luffy saves him, giving him a proposition of you either die here and stay here or you join my pirate crew. And in the following chapters, we see really why people idolize Luffy and why they will join him even in situations where it seems like there's not much of a choice. We get a bit of interaction with the Navy, and again, I think this is going to be something that plays a key role in the story going forward. But the Romance Dawn arc finishes off with Zoro joining the crew and him and Luffy setting off once again, this time with the destination of Orange Town. And Orange Town is where we meet our next member of the crew, although she doesn't join it just yet, Nami. Orange Town has been accosted by a pirate named Buggy, and the residents of the town want to rise up and fight back, and they do this with Luffy's help. Buggy is a clown who has eaten a devil fruit that allows him to split his body into all kinds of different parts, and I actually really enjoyed Buggy as a villain. I thought he had quite a cool power, a quite cool and sinister design, and he definitely looks like he's going to pop back up again. He literally does at the end of the saga. Nami is this character who can't really be trusted. She seems to be a thief, she seems to be a schemer and a scammer, and she also has a massive disdain for pirates. We're not quite sure why yet, but we will find out soon. So she doesn't join the crew per se, she just says she's going to. The next two mini arcs in this saga really follow Nami's story. I think she's the standout character for the first arc. Obviously we're introduced to each character separately, but Nami kind of has this overarching character arc that is playing out over the East Blue Saga. From what I'd heard, I think a lot of people kind of bash on Orange Town, but I kind of liked it. I liked this kind of idea of uprising from the townspeople, and it also had a really loyal and cute dog in it. So how can you hate it? If you're watching this channel, you probably like reading. And if you like reading, then you probably need things to read. Well, I've got just the site for you, Sci-Fire. Sci-Fire is an absolutely wonderful bookstore that specializes in sci-fi, fantasy, comic books, and of course, manga. I've been using them for absolutely ages because they not only have great pricing but also fantastic customer service and top-notch packaging. Like, look at this. If you want to use Sci-Fi yourself, you can head down to the link in the description and use the code NERDLOUNGE for 5% off every order. So get yourself some books, get yourself a discount, and support the channel at the same time. Back to the video. Next up was Syrup Village, which is gonna be the home to my most unpopular opinion in that I really like this arc, but mainly because I like Usopp as a character. Usopp is a young man who lives in Syrup Village, and he's a little larger than life. He's someone who feels the need to lie and exaggerate and tell stories in order to feel important. And I think this is a really pure message coming from a shonen series. It shows how important the view that people have of us is to us, and Usopp is someone who encapsulates this perfectly. He has a need to be liked, and his dream is to become a brave pirate of the sea, because even though he says he's a captain and says he goes on these adventures and saves people, he's actually a coward. So it's going to be really interesting seeing his character arc develop. This arc also has a classic boy who cried wolf mentality to it. Usopp is a known liar, and when danger actually comes to the village from the villain, it isn't believed. And I thought this was kind of an interesting take on that story trope. I didn't like this arc's villain as much as I liked Buggy, but what I did like was the gaslighting and manipulative approach he had to gaining what he wanted. It was a little bit of a plot twist for the characters and for the reader, and I thought that it panned out really well. Obviously, we see him get defeated because the Straw Hats are the main characters, but yeah, I thought it wasn't too bad. And we also finally get a pirate ship at the end of this arc, which is called the Merry-Go. The 4 members of the Straw Hat crew continue on their journey, and they come across the floating restaurant Barity, which is run by this ragtag group of pirates that are always fighting each other but still have this intimate connection to one another. And it's helmed over by the captain Zeph, but it's also attended by a new member of the Straw Hat crew, which is Sanji. Now, Sanji is this cool guy. He's going to be the cook of the group, but he's also that classic shonen trope of the overly sexual guy, the romantic guy, the little bit of a creep guy, which I really don't like in shonen. However, Sanji adds an interesting flair to it because he is also a gentleman. Sanji and Zeph have this really fantastic backstory where we get to see the troubles that are faced when you come to the seas. They both get stranded and they're on this island, and Sanji and Zeph have a limited amount of food. And what Zeph does is give Sanji the food, and over time he has to cut off his own leg in order to eat, which is absolutely insane to think about. Crazy kind of backstory. But the message behind it and the reason that Zeph saved Sanji is because they shared the same dream. So once again, during this arc, we're just seeing the recurring theme of dreams and hopes and what these people are driven by and how important that is, to the point of if someone shares your dream and you don't think you're going to make it, you'll cut off your own leg to make sure they do. And I think that's such an important message that the Barity arc puts forward. Now, the floating restaurant gets accosted by a group of pirates, and as always, Luffy is part of the fight against them. But halfway through this fight, we're actually introduced to a major villain slash character for this story named Mihawk, or Mihawk, not sure. He's one of the 7 warlords of the sea, and he is the master swordsman. He's going to be Zoro's rival. Zoro immediately challenges him to a fight because he is a massive stepping stone in Zoro's dream to become the greatest swordsman of the seas. And of course, he loses. Rather than Mihawk taking his life, he decides to leave him alive, leave him to become a challenger to his title, and leave him to improve throughout his life. And this is the moment where Zoro vows that he will never lose again. It solidifies his part in the Straw Hat crew, and it solidifies a promise to Luffy that he will never lose again until he is the greatest. And that is just such an awesome scene. Sanji, Luffy, and the rest of the Barity crew fight off the pirates, and we get a moment where Sanji leaves Barity, joins the Straw Hat crew in order to travel and find the All Blue, which is a sacred ocean filled with all kinds of different fish that he wants to cook, basically. And that's our 5 members of the Straw Straw Hat crew all joined up. During the commotion in the Barity arc, Nami actually stole the ship, all of the crew's money, and is traveling to Arlong Park, where her pirate crew actually is. Now, throughout the arc, we find out that Nami was kind of stolen and forced into this pirate crew because they invaded her home, and in doing so, her adopted mother died, protecting Nami and her sister. This really puts into context a lot of the factors of Nami's character. We understand why she hates pirates, and we understand why she's doing what she's doing. She's not inherently a bad person. She's trying to make the money so that she can buy back her village from Arlong and his pirate crew. She's a driven person who is driven only by the goodness that her mother, Belmere, taught her, because Belmere died for their safety. She died to protect the village, and Nami wants to continue that legacy. Now, there's something a little bit interesting about Arlong's crew in the fact that they're the first time we haven't seen a human character in this story so far. Arlong's crew are fishmen, and they find themselves to be better than humans, so we get that subtle hinting of superiority, of racism, and weirdly, in a story that is a shonen, I found this really interesting to see. Nami has saved enough to do what she wanted, but her money is stolen in a plan by Arlong's crew to keep her devoted because they don't want to lose her. It's a level of manipulation, and Nami in turn has lost everything. And even though she betrayed the Straw Hats, even though she told them she hates them and that she will never be a part of them, she still asks Luffy for help. And without hesitation, Luffy tells her he will help her. In this moment, we see just how important Luffy's friends are to him, and how driven he is not only by his dream, but by the dreams of others and of doing the right thing. Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Usopp go to Arlong Park to defeat Arlong's crew, and they do so in quite a few different chapters. We have multiple different fights, and the fights are interesting, have good twists, and I really enjoyed them. But the pinnacle of it is Luffy's fight with Arlong. He's fighting Arlong across the whole park, and at the end, they end up in a room where Nami was being kept, where Nami was being forced to do her cartography, to draw her maps. And Luffy sees just how much pain this caused Nami, and he starts to destroy the room. Again, we see this kind of dolt, this guy that never really seems to care, just showing how much he understands the people around him. Maybe subconsciously, maybe consciously, but he does things to better their lives. And it's really interesting to see his outwardly facing personality and then who he actually is. And while he's destroying the room, he sends Arlong all the way through the building, defeating him and saving the town. So the village is free, and Nami finally joins the crew fully, committedly, and it's a really cool moment. And the final bit of the saga is a very short arc where they travel to Logue Town or Luge Town, where Gold Roger, the kind of catalyst of this whole story, was executed. And here we have two main things that happen. So number one is that Zoro runs into a character called Tashigi, who reminds him of his old friend that died and the reason why he committed to his dream. And this character and the owner of the shop she works in give him a couple more swords to add to his collection. Powerful swords, very good swords. And the other thing that happens is that Luffy is captured by Buggy and Alvida, which is a pirate that he faced, the very first pirate that he faced when he entered the ocean. And he's almost executed, but is saved, and the crew escape, setting out for the Grand Line, because that's where this saga has been leading up to. The group are now together and they're going to the Grand Line, and before they do, they commit to each other. They tell each other their dreams and they make a promise that they're all going to achieve it. Luffy is going to become king of the pirates. Zoro is going to become the greatest swordsman of the sea. Nami is going to create a map of the world. Sanji is going to find the All Blue, and Usopp is going to be a great, brave pirate of the sea. They all promise each other, and that's the end of the arc. So this arc is really just an introduction to the world of One Piece and a way of tying in all of these new characters to the Straw Hat crew. And it's such a brilliant start. It's a way of showing the wonder of the world, and it's also a way of showing just how deep some of these characters can be in a series that I wasn't really expecting there to be the deepest of characters. Whilst the saga flitted around quite a bit, there are definitely 5 standout moments for me. Number 5 is the Luffy versus Arlong fight, because it's the best fight of the arc. It is the kind of most high impact one, it's the most high stakes one, and it's also the moment that you are most rooting for Luffy versus the villain, because the villain is just absolute arse to one of Luffy's friends, and it's just so driven, and I absolutely love the fight. He absolutely batters him at the end, and it was just really satisfying. Number 4 is going to be what I'm going to call the Straw Hat Ceremony, basically where Shanks gives Luffy his straw hat. It's an important moment. It's literally the catalyst for Luffy's journey. It's Luffy getting saved, Luffy owing a debt, and also Luffy being given a challenge to find Shanks again and to face him and to become the king of the pirates. It's such an important moment. I think it's the most important moment, but it's not my favorite moment, if that makes sense. Next up, we've got Zoro's promise. I think this whole kind of fight with Mihawk was brilliant. It showed just how outmatched Zoro was. It shows just exactly what they are going to face going forward. Like, these warlords of the sea are so much more powerful than them, and it really solidified the power scaling in that sense. Also, it showed Zoro is committed. It showed that he's ready to die for his dream, but also now he's never going to lose again. We've got someone that is driven to the ultimate degree, and it shined a lot of kind of why I love the story Vagabond, which was interesting. And yeah, I really like this moment. It's a dope moment, and it has some really brilliant quotes as well. Number 2 and 1 are in really close contention for me, but I think my number 2 will be the majority of people's number 1 pick, and that is Nami asking for help. This is the moment that everyone cites as the moment that you get into One Piece, and they're not wrong. They're really not wrong. This moment is powerful, it's strong, and it's emotional, and it shows a different side to Luffy. It shows a different side to Nami, and it makes you root for Luffy as the main character, because even though everything that Nami had done, he still was going to help her. He was still going to save her, and it just shows how good of a person and how good of a leader he is. Absolutely love this moment. But my number 1 is the moment that actually made me tear up, and it's pretty weird, it's pretty random, but that's Usopp saying goodbye to his pirate crew. Usopp had a following of children that looked up to him, that revered him, and that followed him as their pirate captain. They were kind of his only friends, and at the end he realizes he can't put them in danger any longer, and he decides to disband the crew, and it's an emotional moment. Really, it shows that the dream that Usopp has, that to be this brave pirate warrior of the sea, on a very small level he'd already achieved it, and I just think that's a really important and really powerful message for the whole series, is that maybe you have these like large dreams, but you need to look introspectively at a smaller level, and I loved it. It made me tear up. It was absolutely brilliant, and yeah, it's my number 1 moment. And finally, before we close off the video, we're gonna have to do the Straw Hat ranking. Every time I do one of these, I'm gonna add whoever we join into the group, but right now the ranking is fairly simple. Luffy is my number 1 character. He's the main character, he stands out the most, but I have a feeling some of these might change over time. Usopp is my second favorite character, just because of what I've spoken about before. I think the start of his character arc is brilliant, and I want to see more of him. Then we have Zoro, because of his moments with Mihawk and how committed he is, and also he's just cool, he's badass. Then we've got Nami, because again, it's moments, it's magical moments that make these characters what they are, but she's lower down because she was quite treacherous to the team, and I didn't exactly love that. And then number 5, I'm sorry, it's Sanji. He is cool, he is the gentleman, but he epitomizes the tropes of shonen that I don't like, so hopefully he moves away from that and we get to see more of him in a better light in the future. And yeah, that's my saga review for One Piece's East Blue Saga. I cannot wait to continue reading this series. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. I've been loving it so far, and I'm going to do one of these at kind of the end of every saga, or maybe split depending on what people think if it's a longer saga. I don't know. That's enough of me talking. I want you guys to tell me down below what you thought of East Blue Saga. No spoilers, but let's talk about One Piece. I absolutely loving it, and you guys were phenomenal on the last video, so let's have some conversations down below. If you want to pick up some manga or books for yourself, you can check out the link in the description to Sci-Fi and use my code NERDLOUNGE to get yourself 5% off. Doing that supports the channel, and if you're really loving the content and you want to further support the channel, there is a link to the Patreon down in the description. There's 2 tiers, there's loads of rewards. Just have a read through. If you have any questions, feel free to message me, and yeah, if you do that, I will love you forever. Finally, if you want to support the channel in a free way, you can like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to be alerted every single time that I upload. And if you're not sick of seeing my face yet, you can check out one of the videos on the left and right of me. They're recommended for you. I think you'll like them. But if you're done for the day, I will catch you in the next one. Bye bye.